Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever your time zone. Welcome. This is Digital Transformation Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we are here talking about ways to avoid the tech talent shortage that can derail your digital transformation efforts. It's an important topic because globally, according to Manpower, there is a 76% talent shortage in the IT and technology sector. In its Future of Work series, Korn Ferry reports that by 2030, the global tech talent shortage could reach 85 million people, leading to $8.5 trillion in unrealized annual revenues. And here in the States, according to Gartner, 68% of companies in the US are struggling to attract top tech talent. Now, look, recruiting and retaining top talent is tough, even in the best of times. But add today's economic challenges, the talent shortage that's impacting businesses around the globe, and recruiting and retention are ever more exponentially impactful and difficult. The reasons for the current tech talent shortage range from a slowdown in birth rates to workers shifting their perspective on what matters and what they expect from employers. Regarding demography, Japan and European nations have had lower than typical birth rates for decades. And in the United States, baby boomers make up about 25% of the workforce and are expected to be aged out by 2030. As boomers retire, they often leave behind high-skilled tech jobs that younger generations haven't yet had the time or training to take over. Now, certainly many companies can attribute their hiring challenges to pandemic after effects, and there have been many. But the big one that we all know is the Great Resignation, a term that will live in history, which was partly the result of many workers rethinking what they wanted in life and in work after COVID. The result was 47 million workers in the United States voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021. And in 2022, more than 50 million workers voluntarily left their jobs. All of this adds up to the fact that tech hiring is and will be somewhat, very, or extremely challenging over the next year at least. Most, if not all, employers seeking tech talent will encounter a shortage, and many will be held back due to a lack of tech skills, especially when it comes to digital transformation. So what can we do about it? How can we mitigate the impacts? What are some of the best practices that we can use to avoid the tech talent shortage, or at the very least, avoid it derailing our digital transformation efforts? Well, that's what we'll be discussing today with a great panel of guests. But before I introduce our guest today, I do want to say that we want to hear from you too. We'd like to encourage everyone today to participate. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. And if you have a question along the way for our guests, please enter it into the Q&A feature. That's where I'll be looking. And I will attempt to get some of them into the flow of the show today. And we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. Now, let's get to our panel of guests today, starting with Dave Jones. Dave, are you with us? Dave is founder and CEO of Instinctive Solutions. Welcome aboard, Dave.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, delighted to be here. I am with you from the sunny UK.
The sunny UK, welcome aboard, Dave. It's great to have you with us today. Joining us also is Thomas Earl. Thomas, are you with us? Thomas is the CEO of Architectura Education. Are you with us, Thomas? I believe you are muted, Thomas. Where did Thomas go? I saw him momentarily. There you are. Welcome aboard, Thomas. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from rainy Vancouver, Canada.
Rain, rain, rain. Very good. Welcome aboard, Thomas. Thank you for being with us. Also here today is Fiona Delaney. Fiona Delaney is the chair of the Blockchain Ireland group. Fiona, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from a very sunny Dublin. Delighted to join you guys today to talk about this talent pipeline scenario.
Nice, Fiona. Thank you very much for joining us. And last but not least, certainly, Eric Helmer. Eric is the CTO of Remedy Street. Eric, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from?
Hi, thanks. Yes, I'm calling in from sunny and quite humid Paris, France.
Paris. Okay, we are everywhere around the world. I'm coming to you from the west coast of the United States in the great state of Oregon. Welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. To get us started today, I'd like to draw our attention to an article published recently on Sysavision PR Newswire that talks about new research commissioned by UST that found that a third of large UK companies cite a tech skills shortage as their key factor in delaying digital transformation. Now, while UK digital spending is projected to increase over 5% year over year in 2023, the findings also show that senior decision makers in large UK companies often feel that they are unable to fully take advantage of digital advancements because of a tech talent shortage. So, my question for the group today is, what has been your experience with a tech talent shortage, either in your organizations or organizations that you have worked with? What has been your experience? Have you experienced a talent shortage, and what was the impact? Let's start with Dave, if I could. Dave, what has been your experience with a tech talent shortage?
Well, I'm going to start things off by being slightly controversial and slightly antagonistic.
I
I'm
would
not
expect
sure-
nothing less
You
from you,
expect
Dave.
nothing less, right? Exactly. I'm not sure that there is a huge tech talent shortage, to be perfectly honest.
And why is that?
Well, you talked about the Great Resignation, right? So there were 57 million, I think you said, in the US that resigned and wanted
100 million. Yeah.
100 million. There you go. Wanted
close
a
to 100
different
million.
way to work, right? So I'm not sure that there's a tech talent shortage. I think that there's a blockage in the tech recruitment pipeline, if you want to call it that. And if you think back to pre-COVID, the way in which we recruited IT staff, the way in which we recruited a lot of staff, right, was that you got an interview, you took the job, you were in the office 5 days a week, 4 days a week, however many you wanted to, and then COVID struck. And we all learned about a different way to work. And the fact that we don't necessarily need to be in an office 5 days a week, commuting 2 hours each way, especially if you're in Paris. We don't need to do that to function properly. And now that we've gone beyond COVID, a lot of digital transformation happened by enabling us to do remote work. Now that we're beyond that almost, I think a lot of organizations are going back to the status quo a little bit and wanting IT staff to go back to the office. And well, guess what? Those folks that have been working remotely for 4 days a week and just coming in a hybrid environment don't want to do that. And there's an argument that says that they don't need to do that, and that actually we need to rethink the way that we achieve our business goals, and that flows down to recruitment. So I would counter that there will be a shortage in IT skills in years to come, but at the moment there's not a shortage. There's just a changing dynamic.
Now, Eric, you are a CTO, so I want to move to you here for your opinion as we get into this. You're a CTO. What is your experience with tech talent, recruiting tech talent? Is there a shortage?
So I kind of agree with David here a little bit, but we are a support organization. So we have 800-900 engineers all over the world. So labor is our service. So it's very important for us to have 2, 3, 4, 5 in a box, right? To make sure that we're resilient for any kinds of those kinds of changes. But I do think that during the pandemic, it did put people in a very defensive posture, maybe a little bit of a panicking posture to start bringing in and paying very big salaries for this tech. But I think a lot of those overly paid tech people have kind of slowly been released a bit over time and kind of back available. What we're struggling, I think, now is not getting the commodity tech resources that were available. It's the net new stuff, right? It's the really new things that are coming out, the AIs, the machine learnings and things like that just don't have that history of producing so many people. So that's where we're seeing it. But I think that's just because of the novelness of that situation, right?
Now, Fiona, you are in the UK, in Ireland. So the article talks about UK companies feeling the pinch of a tech talent shortage. From your perspective in the UK, what is your perspective on, has this been your experience?
Well, first of all, Ireland is not in the UK. Just have to say that. And second of all, we're very
Correct.
obviously same language, right? And we're very, very close by. We're a much smaller nation. Probably not. We do. There's quite a lot of call centers type services here, and a lot of headquartering of big tech companies in Ireland. We would be a prime location for a European headquarter for big Amazon, Meta, PayPal. All these companies are kind of stationed here, and we are not seeing I think because our tech industry here is set up quite differently to probably that in France or maybe Germany or Austria, the Netherlands, various different countries that have a much more, much greater history in manufacturing and digital transformation from that kind of industrial side of things. So I think, first of all, I think the experience in Ireland is quite unique. And then secondly, from my perspective in Blockchain Ireland, which is an emerging technology, which specifically brings essentially a cloud service orchestration model into system design and distributed systems. We've seen if anything, the whole blockchain ecosystem has seen this is a digital transformation shift. And what I see from the startup's point of view, there's no point in me looking at it as companies, but rather an ecosystem perspective, identifying key talent, nurturing that key talent, whether it's in one company or another company, whether it's that person is located in Ireland or elsewhere. We have as many people in our community represented in different countries as we do in our own nation state. It is 100% reflective of the globalization of the tech market. So what we're seeing is highly educated people, highly transferable. If we're talking about AI, robotics, maybe even blockchain, like highly proficient experts in that technical domain. Often specialists are less proficient in those softer skills that make that next step really viable for them in their career. It's a rare person who can span that divide. But I think that's the gap. It's not really a technical gap. It's that soft skill business analysis, business strategy piece that is the biggest gap.
Thomas, what's your perspective? Have you experienced a tech talent shortage? And what is your perspective on how it is impacting the progress of digital transformation today? Thomas, are you with us? I believe you're muted, Thomas. There you are. What's your perspective, Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's very real. I think that there's a staff shortage. There's perhaps a tech skill shortage in general, but then within the context of digital transformation, it's not about a staff shortage, it's about a skill shortage. There may be many people still available or still able to work under different circumstances, but digital transformation is very much centered on leveraging innovation in order for organizations to become more competitive, to become more enabled and more effective. And much of that innovation relates to a tech skill shortage that is specific to achieving those goals. So when we look at the article and how it highlights the importance of cloud computing and artificial intelligence as being the most important technologies in being successful with digital transformation, contemporary cloud computing and much of the automation that comes with it and much of the innovation that it drives, there is a huge skill shortage in that regard. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, data science in general, those who truly understand that and are truly implementing it successfully, there's a huge shortage in that as well, because many organizations are jumping on the AI bandwagon, adopting it, but not fully understanding it and hiring people sometimes right out of school to implement data science technology to train their systems. And if that's not done correctly, they go in the incorrect direction in terms of the business goals they have without perhaps realizing that right away. So the skills that are key to digital transformation, I think there's a huge shortage of those right now, and I think it's a very big problem.
All right. Well, let's get to our discussion points, because I think, Thomas, you set us up for my next discussion point, and that is rethinking the requirements of onboarding employees and how we recruit talent. Persistent tech talent shortages are causing more and more companies to drop degree requirements. IBM, Accenture, Dell, Google, Bank of America, these are just a few of the organizations that have dropped college degree requirements. Many CEOs are on record as having questioned the need for college degrees, and more companies are realizing degree requirements may indeed be putting them at a competitive disadvantage. So my question to the group is it time for all companies to drop degree requirements and shift their focus, instead perhaps hiring on potential and cultural fit versus a formal education? Dave, what is your feeling about dropping degree requirements?
I could go controversial again and say, no, I completely disagree, but I'm going to temper it down a little bit. I think...
Dave, I'm not going to ask you any more questions.
All right. You're not going to get any more disagreement.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think the thing that I learned when I went through my degree was how to learn, right? And I think maybe boxing things as, you have to have a degree to prove that you can learn. That's the wrong way to look at it. But it's a metric for gauging that for a lot of organizations, right? For me, the most important skill that anybody needs to have in the next 10 years is the ability to learn new skills. We're talking about blockchain, we're talking about AI, we're talking about cloud computing. They weren't around 5 or 10 years ago, so we can't have a track record of staff that have got those skills. We need to figure out, to a large degree, in my opinion, who is going to be able to develop those skills quickly and fit in with the culture of our organization to be able to get the best out of it. Now, does having a degree automatically qualify you as someone that has the ability to learn and be agile and adapt quickly? Not necessarily, but it's as close as we found over the last 10 years as a way to gauge that, in my opinion.
Thomas, what's your experience? Is it time for companies to drop degree requirements?
I think there's a case for it. The problem with many degrees, computing science degrees in particular, is that by the time students graduate, they're already behind in terms of where the technology is at. And I think that for those types of degree programs to remain relevant, they really need to up their game in terms of the curriculum they develop. We've seen students come out freshly, honors degrees and so on, and not understand the context of AI or modern cloud computing or even just data science in general. And I think that's a big problem, because that's how the entire IT industry is shifting. And if you're already 2-3 years behind by the time you graduate, then that makes a strong case for dropping that requirement and favoring those who are very much up to speed in the technologies that are relevant.
Many folks in academia tell me that it's time to change what those degrees contain in terms of the learning. Fiona, do you feel that we should be looking at STEM education as well, in the fact that perhaps it's not preparing recent graduates for the requirements of the real job market?
Yeah, there's definitely a gap between academia, third level education, and the world of work, for sure. I don't see how you can solve the problem of having inbound hires not knowing the basics of computer science if you're going to scrap a requirement for computer science. So to me, that doesn't really add up. Now, I do know that I'm coming from an ecosystem which is highly motivated, super adaptive, early adoptive, risk-averse individuals looking for a career in technology and who picked blockchain. Okay, so this is not this is a specific particular theme of cohorts. But the difficulty I have, or that I see in the ecosystem, is there's a lot of people who came on board into Web3 with practically zero formal education or training in computer science, and are very, like an amoeba, really willful and really, really adaptive in terms of the type of technology that they like. And they have no way of engaging with a knowledge domain or practices, like architectural practices, that they don't catch on to quickly. So idiosyncratic learning patterns leave people vulnerable to I would say an impoverished like knowledge view. They will have pockets that they don't know that they don't have, and they've got no reference point of how to dig back into that. So I would say 80% of our ecosystem is postgraduate qualified in something usually a bit technical. Could be straight up informatics or computer science, and many people have specialized, but that's only relevant to get a job. After that, everything else is about the softer skills. So there's room for everybody, but I don't think we can throw out third level education. There's too much to know.
All right. Let's get Eric's perspective on this. At Rimini Street, you mentioned you have a ton of tech folks. What about rethinking requirements and how we recruit talent? Do you folks require a degree for placement? Or what is your position on that? And what are your thoughts on the idea?
I think it all depends on the role that you're going to have in the company, of whether that's important or not, especially in the world of computer science and engineering. I agree with Thomas that the universities are teaching things that are at least 5 years old. I mean, just to kind of give you an example, if you're looking at say a cybersecurity engineer that you want to bring on board, and that person has a master's degree in information systems, right? Then you'd find another candidate that doesn't have any degree, but has the top 5 cybersecurity certifications globally, that demonstrates a very difficult testing cycle to be able to go through that, to actually ace those tests and get those certifications. Quite an achievement. I would take person B probably over person A if I'm looking for cybersecurity engineers. As a matter of fact, a lot of universities today their curriculum is nothing more than teaching the certification exams. So they're coming together a little bit, but again, it all depends on the role.
Well, I want to shift our focus now, perhaps related to recruiting is retaining. I mean, we need to retain our best staff. And I want to ask about effective approaches to reduce staff burnout, to retain key staff, upskilling and outsourcing and flexible working, those kinds of things. Now, Eric, you folks at Rimini Street released a report late last year titled IT Leaders, the Future Outlook Report for 2023. And you found that of the top 3 IT challenges in 2023, according to your research, 40% of respondents feel that preventing staff burnout and keeping up morale was their biggest challenge. Eric, were you surprised to find staff burnout as a top 3 IT challenge for 2023 in the report?
I don't think so, because I don't care if you're Apple or Google, you don't have enough IT staff in your IT department, and you don't have enough resources to keep up with the demand that all the departments want from you, right? And you can't just throw money at this, right? That's the problem. You can't just go across the board and try to retain everybody by giving everyone in the company a 30% raise, right? That's just not reasonable. So we have to come up with creative ways to have people want to stay at a company, even knowing that they may make more elsewhere, right? Now, there's always going to be people that are going to be purely money driven. We know that. But I think most people will stay where they feel happy and they feel respected, they feel challenged, and they're growing, right? And we also have to have a flexibility model now, especially with the younger generation. We have to be respectful of families. We have to be respectful of different things that come up. Just the 60s and 70s militant, your butt is in that seat from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. clocking in and clocking out. Those days are long gone. As a matter of fact, at Rimini Street, just as a test last year, we decided to take one full quarter and introduce a 4-day work week. Everyone in the company works 4 days work weeks. Most people in the company works 4-day work weeks, and they have what we call Fabulous Friday, which is a time for them to take the entire day to do what they need to reflect, spend time with family, catch up on things that they need to around the house. Now, of course, we're a 24-hour support organization. So on their engineering side, some people have marvelous Mondays or wonderful Wednesdays, but everyone has a 4-day work week. And what we found at the end of that quarter is we actually had much less attrition and, surprisingly, much more operational efficiency. So it was very, very exciting. And as a matter of fact, because that quarter was so successful in that test, we decided to extend that for this entire year. So this entire year, everyone has a 4-day work week here at Rimini Street.
We are here today with Dave Jones, Thomas Earl, Fiona Delaney, and Eric Helmer talking about digital transformation and the need or the constraint of a tech talent shortage. This question coming in from Johnny Boyd, and thank you, Johnny. If you have a question or a comment for our group today, please feel free to enter that into the Q&A feature, and we will attempt to get that into the show today. But this one coming in from Johnny, saying digital transformation offers both a challenge and a solution to the ongoing difficulties of attracting and retaining talent. Whether we like it or not, supporting and improving mundane tasks of staff through technology is now an essential part of attracting and retaining talent. I think that's a good point. Thomas, what about reducing the mundane in a way as a strategy, if you will, to retain top talent and avoid staff burnout?
Yeah, I think that's a really important perspective, because that is the two-way relationship we have with digital transformation initiatives. The leveraging of the innovations helps us elevate the roles of those who work for us, not just in IT, but well beyond, but also carrying over into IT. So I think that's goes back to leadership and planning in terms of how that's infused into an organization and how that impacts and shapes the culture of an organization, because that's something that a lot of those who work and are affected by it need to have an understanding of. And it also, I think, ties in somewhat to the retention of talent, because, again, the talent we want to retain may be beyond just our tech talent. And it relates to a necessity to introduce something along the lines of a personal development plan for those who work for us, for those that provide important tech skills, for us to show them that we don't need you just to do this now, but we're invested in your future. We want you to grow with us, and to actually have that plan laid out for them so that they feel that the organization's making a commitment to them and their future as much as they're helping the organization with their needs right now. And then that carries over into those impacted by automation, replacing roles of mundane tasks, and to have them elevated to do more fulfilling tasks as well, to upskill them, and to have basically a personal development plan in place for those affected by technology and for those whom we need to enable that technology.
Well, I think that's an important point. We can remove the mundane and talk about how folks can be redeployed in more meaningful or more connected kinds of work. I'm not certain, does that always happen? I mean, Dave, you're in the information management, the enterprise content management space, where a lot of the focus is indeed automating mundane tasks, relieving folks of the burden of sort of repetitive tasks. And the benefit statement for that is always that we can redeploy those folks into some other roles in the organization that's more value add. Does that happen?
Yes and no. I think one important thing that we need to put on the table is that we talk about digital transformation as if it's a technology focused thing. It's 50% technology, it's 50% people. And probably 90% of the people that are affected by automation are not technology friendly or technology savvy people. They're people that have been doing the same job maybe for 10, 15 years, doing it manually, and technology scares the pants off of them, quite frankly.
Right.
And one of the reasons why digital transformation fails in a lot of organizations is because of user pushback and user reticence and the change management that doesn't happen, because a lot of us think, rightly or wrongly, that the technology solution is the answer. It's part of the answer. So I think there's a lot of change, and putting together progression plans and career plans and redeployment plans is a start. But I think actually going back, talking to those people before you even think about deploying technology is a critical part of the conversation, and realizing that you're going to have pushback and being ready for that pushback and being prepared to either lose those people and do the automation, or keep those people and not do the automation. There's a risk reward conversation that needs to happen at every step of that way, I think.
All right, I want to get to Fiona, but I want to go ahead and move forward to our next bullet point or a discussion point, and that is helping existing talent adapt. Now, Fiona, when we spoke before the program today, you felt strongly about organizations hiring from within, but that can be difficult for some workers if they lack the training to begin with. Should organizations step up their internal training and development, perhaps even funding some of that from money that would otherwise be spent on hiring from outside?
Probably. I think the first step, though, is I describe it like a mindset shift. I'm a strong advocate of open innovation approaches, and I think you can see that from the point of view of an ecosystem like Blockchain Ireland. Open innovation is a neat fit there, and mindset, and looking at the talent and requirements of that ecosystem, not just a single organization, is sort of how I've developed, I guess, my viewpoint here. But you can apply that to a large organization as well. You've got departments, you've got teams, you've got all of these different micro constructs, and all of them. It's very rare that you find a large company that's using technology or providing technology that is static for 15 years. That would be an unusual scenario. So let's think about digital transformation in the context of serving the public. You're the organization serving the public, which is in a constant state of digital transformation. I look at it as a mindset shift on the part of that organization. We need to test this first. How do we experiment together with our staff to understand and empathize with those requirements in the marketplace? And this would be an open innovation, look over the hedge sort of approach. We're the experts, but we want to share our knowledge, and you get this more porous approach from the market to the company, but you can do that across teams and domain boundaries as well. I see the biggest challenge to digital transformation being the challenge of knowledge transfer across knowledge domains, mostly business and technology.
All right, now, Eric, tell us a little bit more about your folks' efforts to help existing talent adapt, upskilling, and so forth. What have been some strategies that have helped you folks?
Well, I think a lot of mistakes that IT leaders do today is they all get into a closed boardroom, they figure out what they want to do, and then they ram it down everyone's throat, and they figure out why they're being resistant, right? And they think, well, we're briefing them and we're teaching them and we're training them along the way. So, what are we doing wrong? I think what we're doing wrong here is we're not involving the users and the managers from the very, very beginning in the actual creation of the digital transformation roadmap from the very beginning. Now, you can have a corporate objective. You want to have these top 10 things done in your, whether it's synchronization or organization or zero trust security or whatever that you want to be put in place. But if you approach these different divisions and you ask them what their pain points are, what could make their job easier, what was it, without even telling that there's a corporate objective, and then somehow marrying what they need to get done day to day in and mapping that into that corporate objective, so that what you end up doing is you turn a push more into a pull, because they will like it so much. They want to know, hey, when is this going to get done? I can't wait any longer. Let's get this done. This would be great.
I think that approach also ties into this idea of facilitating the growth of advocates and champions within those different teams. And that's super important, that they sort of self-identify and are appreciated and recognized from within, not sort of appointed from me or from outside somehow. That in terms of expediency and communication, shortening communication time, leveraging those human forces makes a big difference.
This comment coming in from Maxwell. Thank you, Maxwell, for your comment. Using tech such as communication apps help improve concentration and reduces stress. However, the less talked about meditation and mindfulness are equally important and have many health and psychological benefits. Thomas, what's your thought on things like meditation and mindfulness? What role do they play in helping reduce staff burnout and keep key talent in place?
I think that having the ability to concentrate and focus and think clearly when it comes to establishing certain parts of the environment that you want to digitally enable, when it comes to carrying out a digital transformation, and having the support of the entire organization behind it is extremely important. It's not just about concentrating and having clarity, but it's also about communicating that clarity from leadership to the entire organization. So an atmosphere and culture that supports transparency in terms of its business goals, brings employees into the boardrooms to share the vision, and then is able to establish an environment that is not hyper stressful, that does not put too much responsibility on those who are too relied upon, and having and carrying that forward, not just within IT but outside of IT. If that can be achieved in some organizations, I think there are huge benefits to it, because so many of the problems that arise from organizations trying to become digitally enabled can be traced back to human error, especially in the security domain. And so being able to foster that type of culture will only benefit an organization and will only allow its culture itself to evolve in a more healthy manner.
All right, very good. We are here today with Dave Jones, Thomas Earl, Fiona Delaney, and Eric Helmer. It is time now for some questions from our audience, folks. I would like to get to those questions in the time that we have remaining. This question coming in from Rebecca. Rebecca asks, how best can digital transformation leaders collaborate with HR to overcome the certification gatekeeping that is preventing many talented young stars from getting their feet in the door? Dave, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I think for me, we're talking about retention, and that there's a focus on retention. We've got to get people through the door to retain them. But I think we also have to realize that at some point we're going to have to lose some people. Not everybody is going to want to stay with the organization all the time. But that shouldn't mean that we restrict what we offer them. It shouldn't mean that we restrict the benefits, the culture, the way that we work with those folks. There's an old training adage. What happens if we train someone and they leave? And then the counter to that is, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? Right. So I think, getting rid of the certification gatekeepers, getting folks in that fit the culture, that have that ability to learn. And then actually, I'm going to be controversial again for the final time, Kevin, let's get organizations taking some of the responsibility for that training and ongoing education. We can't put it all back on the universities. Let's get folks in that fit the culture, that can be trained to work in the way that the organization wants. Let's give them the benefits that they want in terms of, mindfulness training or meditation time or whatever. But let's realize that they're all different as well. Mm-hmm. And that one approach doesn't work for everybody. We have to create an environment that is flexible, create that ecosystem that Fiona talks about, but within your own organization, to develop the best from either the existing staff that you've got or the new staff that you want to pull through.
All right, this question coming in from Johnny. In the process of helping existing talent adapt to digital transformation, how do you handle potential resistance or pushback from employees who may be hesitant to embrace change? What strategies have you found effective in fostering a culture of continuous learning and growth within your organization? Eric, have you addressed this at your organization, and what did you do and what were the results?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see that resistance, but again, like I said, if you involve those people from the very, very beginning, then it becomes a collaborative approach as you come together, right? It really comes together in a much more collaborative way, right? And also, I think where we make a lot of mistakes in this resistance is that we don't explain why. We just say this is what we're doing. And a lot of people are just like, why are you doing this? Everything's working just fine. But if you just laid out for them how this is going to impact the business, how this is going to impact their job, and how this is going to be such a positive thing and generate excitement over it, so that the people understand really what, why. But, we got to realize this isn't our first rodeo. I mean, technology has disrupted us since the since the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, we have robots replaced assembly line workers. We have smart networking switches have replaced telephone operators. We've got automated point of sale systems now that are eliminating the retail clerk. So this isn't a new thing. I mean, maybe it's coming at us at a velocity that's a little bit unprecedented, but there's two sets of people. There's the people that are just going to push back and not get on board, not get with the program. And they're going to lose out to the people who are going to take it as an opportunity, because these things do generate just as much opportunity, maybe even some brand new initiatives that can really catapult them, and they can take the knowledge that they have of what they're doing today, apply it to that new technology, and become a specialist in that field. And those are the ones that are going to hit the home runs here.
100%. I absolutely agree. You've got to reward that open mindset that you will always have those early movers, whether it's internally or in the marketplace. You'll have those early movers. You've got to work with those. They're your champions, the show and tell people. And accept there will be some people who it's not worth their while. They've done this thing in a certain way with this team all this time, and they don't have the heart to learn a new way or find a new team or something. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Essentially, digital transformation, if it's an in-house thing, you are co-creating with those workers. What the objective, you set the strategy and then you are co-creating it, you're shipping it live, because it's only when you start to deploy it, or these new initiatives or these new proposals, these new policies, that you hit really defined details. And it's only then that you discover where the edges of the room are. So you have to acknowledge you're expecting those workers to contribute and co-create this new system.
All right, we are running terribly short on time at this point. I do want to get to our last section here, where I'd like to ask each of our panelists today to give us one quick action item that we can use to take advantage of your ideas and advice today. Dave, do you have a tip or an action item for us?
Of course I do, Kevin. I've talked a number of times today about this ability to learn new skills. For me, the tip literally to take away tomorrow is to go start learning a new skill tomorrow, and share with the rest of your team and your colleagues that you are taking that on board. You're learning a new skill, whatever that happens to be, and encourage them to do the same thing.
Thomas, 60 seconds. Do you have a tip or an action item for us?
Yeah, Kevin, I was just going to say, rewarding the open mind, I think, is a really important part. It's a shared vision that needs to be had in the organization. There needs to be clarity about that vision. Those who don't share that vision are those that we wouldn't want to be part of that future anyway. So it's a filtering process, but also it is a huge opportunity for many who do have that open mind.
Fiona, what's one piece of advice that you have for us today in the time that we have left?
Well, I think whether it's for individuals or organizations, have a look at open innovation strategies. You can apply them to yourself and your skills and your own mindset, but organizations can do that too. And I think the view is to shorten that distance between strategy and fine-tune detail layers in organizations. And good luck.
All right. And finally, Eric, what is your action item for us today?
To me, I think I can sum it up in one sentence, and that is outsource the commodity, build the differentiation. And that's a win-win when you do that. So if you take the day-to-day stuff that is just keeping the lights on, that is just running things, it's repetitive, and you outsource that, whether you outsource that to AI, whether you outsource that to third-party companies, and you just get that off your focus so that you can focus on things that are going to actually move the needle for the company, right? That's going to get competitive advantage, take market share from your competitors, decrease costs, increase revenue, right? But it's also going to have a second win, and the second win in that is it's going to retool your existing people to upskill on the new stuff that they want to work on anyways, right? They don't want to be running the commodity stuff. They want to be working on the new stuff anyways. So it's a retention play here, but it's also a business focus play as well. So get rid of the day-to-day, start focusing on the stuff that's really going to matter.
All right. We have been speaking with Eric Helmer, CTO at Rimini Street, Fiona Delaney, chair of the Blockchain Ireland Group, Thomas Earle, CEO of Architectura Education, and Dave Jones, founder and CEO of Instinctive Solutions. Thank you, everyone. It was a great panel today. Your perspectives and advice were spot on. Thank you so much. I hope we get a chance to talk again soon. And thank you to everyone joining us today. Thank you too. Join us again next time, 7:25 at 1600 British summertime, when we will talk about it with another great panel of guests about back to basics, making or breaking your digital transformation. It's sure to be another great discussion. And if you'd like to find me, you can do so at LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there, and check me out. I'm Kevin Crane. You can check me out also on my weekly audio podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. But for now, that will do it for this episode of Digital Transformation Talk. And until next time, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.